Hi everyone, welcome to this month's Mozilla Learning Community Call. My name is Christina Gore and it's a pleasure to have you with us today. Thank you to everyone who is watching and participating with us live. If you know anyone who is trying to tune in to learning.mozilla.org/community/community call and they don't see the live stream, please tell them to refresh the page. And if you're watching the archive, thanks for joining us later. Simone will be leading the conversation today about brokering web literacy, developing citywide learning projects including successes and challenges, and how they connect to global networks for broader impact. I'll turn it over to her in just a moment to introduce herself and our guests, but first a few housekeeping items. Instructions on how to use the Etherpad can be found on line 10 for anyone who needs a quick refresher. The basics is you just put your name in the upper right-hand box so we know who you are. There's a chat function on the right-hand side as well that you can ask questions, interact with some awesome whale and cat pictures that I see Brenda's throwing up there. And then on the left is where we'll take notes and you can find more information about the discussion. Please also add your name to line 16, the roll call. That way we know who you are and we can match your color. So I encourage you to ask questions and add your thoughts and resources to the Etherpad throughout the conversation. We want you to be an active participant today. And in fact, immediately after this call, we're inviting you to participate in a live tweet chat hosted by @MozLearn to continue this discussion. So please follow #TTWchat to join us. So Simone, I'll turn it over to you now to introduce yourself and our awesome speakers.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christina. Again, my name is Simone Rankisoon, and I am the Portfolio Strategist for the Mozilla Leadership Network here in Canada, as well as leading the activities of Hive Toronto. I'm really excited to introduce our speakers today because we have an amazing lineup of individuals who have had the opportunity and the ability to take an awesome local project and really ensure that it has the global impact. We know that learning doesn't stop at borders, and these individuals have really stepped up when it came to figuring out an issue they cared about or figuring out a topic they wanted to really focus on and spread that across borders. So I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce Gilad Cohen of Jayu, based here in Toronto, and Tina Verbo from Mozilla Philippines. We are waiting for one more speaker, Jeffrey Sens from our Hive in Cascadia, located in Portland, Oregon. But I'm going to actually throw it to Gilad to start us off, where he will be discussing an awesome project called Jayu. Gilad?
Awesome. So hi, everyone. Like someone said, my name is Gilad Cohen. I'm the founder and executive director of Jayu, and we're a non-for-profit based out of Toronto that shares human rights stories through the arts. And if you guys are looking at the Etherpad, we do that in a number of ways, but we're known for 3 of our major projects. The first is a human rights film festival where we screen documentaries, shorts, feature-length films, and invite people from the community who can relate to the human rights theme of the film. So for example, if we're screening a film on the refugee crisis in Syria, we will invite a Syrian refugee from the community to speak after the film. So we have an annual Human Rights Film Festival. We also have a podcast that's hosted on iTunes and on Rabble, with episodes coming out every Wednesday. We're on a bit of a hiatus now because we just wrapped up season 1. And then lastly, a program that I'm really, really excited about, and one that we're fully entrenched in right now, is called the I Am Project, where we provide training to artists here in the city, primarily photographers, and we connect them with marginalized groups to provide arts mentorship training to them and to be able to empower them. So this year we're connecting 12 photographers with the Syrian refugee newcomer population. We're training the Syrian youth on how to use cameras. And then we're taking the youth's best picture, the audio stories from them that we're in galleries across the city, raising awareness of their stories, but also generating income. All the photos are for sale with 100% of the profits going directly back to the youth. So this builds on a project we did last year where we, rather than working with refugee communities, we were working with the homeless youth population. Over $5,000 was raised. 5 out of the 6 youth from last year are no longer on the streets. 3 of the 6 youth from last year have come back this year in a mentorship capacity for this year's batch of youth. So it's really like an empowerment project, an arts project, a community building project, and income generation for a community that's in need.
Awesome. I really want to ask the question, why start Jayu? What was that catalyst for you?
I get asked that all the time, and everyone's always expecting, like, I found that through research art was powerful, but it's all out of personal experience. I took in a quick nutshell, I took a trip to North Korea back in 2008, not knowing anything about the country. I came back to South Korea, where I was living at the time, feeling kind of confused about what I had just seen. So I went online and did some research, and I learned some really horrible things. Concentration camps, millions of people who have starved to death in just a decade, tight restrictions on people's freedoms. And so I became obsessed with North Korea, let's just say. And so I started reading as much as I could do, was convince my family to care about what was happening there. They'd always say, this is a North Korean thing, this is not an us thing. And it really, really bothered me. Also, with a bit of background, I come from a Jewish background. My grandparents often talked about the Holocaust and camps and things like that, and we were always told, like, never again. But it is happening today, and it's happening to a different community. So it really touched me, I think, on a human level, but on a personal level. And so I could never get through to my family to care. And then one day, randomly, I'm at my mom's house, and I put on this documentary, watch it. And as soon as she was done, she was in tears. And she had asked me if we had anything else like that. And so that was kind of like a eureka moment for us, or for me at least, where I realized that art, or film in this instance, had the power to do what nothing else could, and that was build empathy and build a connection between a person and a cause. So I sort of took that moment and grew it from there, and that's what Jayu is today. And just as a bit of a background, Jayu means freedom in Korean. Because our roots come from working originally with North Korean human rights groups.
Awesome. How has the digital played a part in your work, the digital world?
I mean, in some ways, like, our organization relies entirely on digital world. Our podcast is completely digitally produced and released. The photography project that we do with the youth is through the use of mobile phones, and same with the storytelling. And then again, the film festival relies entirely on film. So when we talk about art, it's in many ways art that comes out of digital means. We rely so much on different forms of digital technology to be able to reach communities that we're trying to raise awareness with, or on the flip side, communities that we're trying to empower. For example, the homeless youth or the Syrian refugee youth population that I was talking about.
Awesome. Great. Just a reminder, if anybody has questions for Gilad, you can add them starting on line, looks like 84. So a question that's coming in right now, Gilad, if you don't mind taking some time to answer, is how do you program participants balance the content and the work, meaning many times when sharing human rights stories?
Sorry, how do we balance what we choose?
Balance the content of work. I guess when sharing human rights stories. Sorry, it's just coming in right now.
I'll touch upon
Okay.
It really depends year to year. As I was saying, at first it focused on North Korea because of my deep personal connection there. Last year we were working with homeless youth, and again that sort of came from a personal thing. A couple years ago I felt like I was in a dark space in my life, and photography really helped me climb out of that. I fell into photography, and I saw the impacts that it had on my life. And I just so happened to be working at a youth shelter a couple years ago, while also doing Jayu on the side at the time. And I thought, well, let me backtrack. I saw, like, a lot of the stuff that I was going through, I saw in the youth. And I mean, it's not fair to compare my struggles with that of a homeless person, but on a basic human level, I thought that if it could help me, maybe them. And so that's what led us to reach out to the homeless youth population. So it sometimes has to do with personal stuff, either with me or people on our team, or it has to do with what's sort of like what's on topic right now. So, for example, last year when the Black Lives Matter movement happened, we had a huge speaker series. We've since retired that program, but because it was relevant, we decided to talk about it. And it's also the same with our film festival. A lot of the films that we get tend to be relevant to what's happening in the world right now. So we tend to program things that are just talked about on a global scale, but also trying to balance that with things that are affecting our local community, to our community, or on a much more micro level, my direct experience with like the homeless youth of the North Korean population.
So just to, that was awesome. And to go back to the question, I think we were trying to, I think one of the biggest issues sometimes with dealing with very sensitive topics is that you have to tend to balance the content of the work with the idea that sometimes it can be, the struggle can be romanticized. So how are you supported in your programming to share both the good and the bad?
I studied international development in school, and we were taught that the number one most important thing to do when you're doing any sort of program with a stigmatized or oppressed population is to work with them hand in hand to design that program. So that really helps in coming in and making sure that you're not stigmatizing someone, or that you're not taking advantage of them to romanticize a story. So many of our programs, including our program last year, when we initially designed our IM project, was constructed in consultations with the homeless youth population, asking them what they wanted to see out of the program, asking them how they thought that the program would best impact them, and taking their insights in the design and implementation of the project. I can't pretend to know what it's like to be a Syrian refugee person, or Syrian refugee, sorry. Therefore, I can't pretend to design a program that would suit them as best as it could. So it's really important to work with the community to balance that, because it's them that knows best how to A, approach the issue, but B, also work with it.
Awesome. So I hear your inspiration came from a visit to North Korea. You brought that inspiration back to Toronto to then create a program focused on Toronto homeless youth. Like, what's next? Like, where do you see this really, truly borderless passion and project go? Oh, I think you're muted.
Better?
Yep.
So I was joking that we won't stop until we have global domination through the art. That's basically what we're doing. What's next for us is trying to figure out new and innovative ways to have the arts, or to have art break down barriers, to lead to conversation. We use the arts, and I'm not shy about saying that. Like, we do use the arts to build safe spaces so people can have the types of conversations that we need to address issues, but also envision a world that we can and do deserve to be living in. So for us, and I think this is a super vague answer, it's looking at what's trending and sort of what technologies are really useful in being able to communicate or connect with marginalized groups, so we can break down those barriers and have those conversations. A more detailed answer would be, like, we want to get more into schools. So taking this sort of program and being able to come into classrooms and having human rights discussions. I feel like human rights is often to be very adult, and we don't often include the youth in these kinds of conversations, but there's no reason why we can't do that. We need to tailor the way we have important conversations, and we need to keep the youth in mind when we do have these conversations, because they're not just for adults, they're for everybody. So it's figuring out new and innovative ways to communicate also with the youth population.
Awesome. What's the biggest challenge that you face?
I would say funding, without a doubt. I know that's not unique to us as a small nonprofit. I think we do such incredible work. We've seen the difference that it's made in people's lives and also in our community, but we are such a small group. I'm the only person working here full-time, which means I'm also managing, like, our social media, running programming, and doing all the day-to-day stuff. And so being able to trying to balance all the work that comes along with this organization, and then also like trying to find funding to do all the things that we're trying to do is really, really difficult. So it's trying to find the sustainable funding to hold up all the things we try to do.
Awesome. So on the flip side, what can we do to help?
What can you guys do to help?
Yeah, what can a community do to help?
If you check out the Etherpad, there's a wonderful link. Thanks to Simone for reminding me. jayu.ca/donate. That's one way. That's a very like material way, but really the best way to help is to spread the word out about some of the things that we're doing. The main purpose of our organization is not to raise money, it's to share human rights stories. So it's just making sure that our events, our rooms are packed, our podcast is out there, and that when people, when we do create that space or that platform for people to share their stories, that it's being heard by as many people as possible. So it's just sharing, disseminating the work that we're putting out there.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much. That was incredible. I'm going to throw it up to Tina now, who's been a long-time Mozillian. And Tina, I would love for you to share kind of what you do and what you got started and some of the learning opportunities and projects you've done.
So basically, I'm one of the leads for the education initiatives of the Mozilla Philippines community here locally, and also, yeah, basically that's it. I mean, I'm also a Mozilla representative, so yeah, so mostly that's my workaround.
Awesome. How long have you been involved with the work?
I'd say it's like 2013.
Oh,
when,
wow, okay.
Yeah, when I first got involved, well, when I was still in college. Yeah, so with the other volunteers who initiated and also asked me to try to volunteer with them. Yeah, and it is also an eye-opener to see another point of view on how people see the web, not just in a very typical consumer type.
Oh, awesome. So can you tell us what you're doing in the Philippines right now?
Recently we are trying to reach out with students in different campuses and universities to spread with web literacy through coding or even for privacy awareness and other stuff like that. But we're currently trying or planning to actually reach out with indigenous people or even poverty-stricken schools or communities. Yeah, that's the plan yet.
Sorry, Simona, you're muted. I'm going to unmute you here if I can.
How about
Okay,
this?
now try. Now try. Yep.
How about this? We're good? Perfect. So, Tina, can you give us a few examples of some learning projects that you've started in your community and how you plan to kind of take them outside those borders?
We started this annual summer learning thing for kids to code, and also we try to reach out with universities who has who has who we have a connection with. It's like we have actually like 20 universities right now, something like that, and we're not just talking about coding in particular, but we also do privacy awareness, and stuff like that. I mean, it's broad for the web literacy thing, yeah.
Challenges that you face on the ground right now?
Currently, maybe the partnership with other organizations, since we're just a community. We are not actually a certified NGO or something like that. The validity or the look on the perspective of other organization is that we are not that certified, or we are not that legit to be partnered with, something like that. And also the fact that we are volunteer driven. There are times that we cannot even ask for other people because they are not available and stuff like that. Yeah.
Like, what's your biggest goal that you want to see attained from your work? What would be the vision for Mozilla Philippines?
We really want to actually step our game with reaching out to other people. Like what I've said, we're planning to reach out with our local indigenous people here, since they don't have that much resources, they don't have that much knowledge on what really the web is, and they don't have any experience on that. I mean, there's a lot of enlightenment that we could give to them. Yeah.
We have a question. Are resources available for the indigenous population in their dialect, i.e. language?
Currently, that is what we are trying to create. Chad is one of the people that are spearheading something for those kind of critical web things, that needed things or resources that, yeah.
Chad is working to really localize some of the projects. Yeah.
Sorry, you sound like a robot all of a sudden. Can you maybe, are your headphones plugged in? I'm not sure if it's an echo or what it is.
How does it sound now?
Much better, thank you.
Okay, that's weird. So just to reiterate, Chad Sansing, who is our curriculum developer, is also working with the community to help localize some of those projects. So awesome. Thank you so much, Tina. That was really interesting to hear. I think sometimes we get a little siloed, that we don't really know what's going on outside of our city borders. And it's really great to hear about some of the awesome things going on in my own backyard with Jayu, and across the world in the Philippines. So unfortunately, one of our speakers couldn't join us today, but I wanted to provide an overview of what Hive Cascadia is and the current project that they're working on. So many of you on this call will know that Hive Cascadia is located in Portland, Oregon, and it represents a geographic area that includes Eugene, Oregon, Salem, Oregon, and Portland. They started their hive in December 2014, which is also one of the first hives I was involved with, so I have a lot of love for them. And their biggest project that really was the catalyst for their hive development was something called the Mythos Challenge. And the Mythos Challenge is this intersection between kind of myth and history and youth engagement and activity. So the whole project is actually youth created, so essentially for youth by youth. And it is a 9-month project where the Mythos Teen Council, which is an application-based process, works with the Portland Art Museum, Pixel Arts, Game Education, and the Multnomah County Library, hosting different workshops, facilitating different activities and game days, as well as really bringing in how youth can educate adults from the ground up, as opposed to it usually being top down. So a lot of what they're trying to do is that history and that learning piece there's such a strong intersection, and you can find such a strong intersection of that digital piece. And they've actually really sprung up this idea that game education can really anchor a lot of this learning. I think something that we're all pretty aware of is that if you make it fun, they will come. And we want to really see that happen. One of the things that we've talked about in Cascadia is that their biggest goal right now is to really have a Hive Cascadia makerspace where you have a space dedicated all the time to this kind of learning and making and building. And they just don't want to see it developed in Portland. They want to see it also pushed to pushed outside of those borders. Portland, like many cities in the United States and Canada, because of rising property prices, lower income families have been pushed to the fringes further and further outside of the city core, and that learning, in many opportunities, usually in many contexts, stays in the core. And their biggest goal right now is to actually anchor these learning spaces outside of the city core, where individuals who have access to transportation can come to leave the city, but those who don't have access to any types of transportation because they don't have a great public transportation system, they don't have access to a car, they don't even have access sometimes to a bus pass to get to the city, that they're pretty much siloed outside and left outside of this kind of amazing, phenomenal learning space. So in the build-up to this call, a lot of the conversations that we've had with the Cascadia community is, it's great. We love the idea of always, not concentrating resources in the core of the city, but how do you actually get the community engaged? Because if a lot of the work that you've been doing has been, with these large institutions that always seem to be in one place, i.e. downtown Portland, it's pretty hard to say to the community in these fringe communities that we want to get involved with you. So something that Cascadia has really done well is that they hold a lot of the Mythos Challenge activities in these communities. So they don't concentrate it in the core, that they actually host them. They have a really great mix of an activity will be in the south side and then will be downtown, back to the north side and then downtown, which is a really awesome opportunity for them because it's given them exposure, so people know that this is a regular occurrence, so they can depend on it. But it's also given voice to youth who from these communities, these kind of fringe communities, to get involved with the challenge. And many of those youth who were involved last year, their first full year run, have come back to kind of mentor the newest council. So I really wish Jeff could have joined, but because of time schedules, I think there was an overlap. But what their biggest challenges are is that because of their kind of informal state of being kind of this collaborative group of the Public Arts Museum, a library, and this game education system network, a lot of people don't see them as kind of a legitimate organization. So what they've really struggled with is how do you get more youth-led community organizations involved, because the goal is not to just keep it housed within these three institutions, but they want more people, and they would love to see more challenges with other organizations kind of organically develop throughout different networks. And another challenge that they've also faced is funding. Very little funding, making a lot of the efforts that they have to focus on not just the quality of the programming, but where to find money to actually do it. So they've actually gone after Knights Foundation funding located in the States through the Multnomah County Library, and have been really essentially strategic about using their organizations as lead organizations on grants, and then building in the Mythos Challenge to subsequently be funded through these larger grants. Another opportunity that they would love to see is that more youth and adults having opportunities to collaborate outside of just this challenge. They wanted to build a council. They wanted to build a bit more something in Salem and Eugene, but unfortunately, because they don't have strong youth or education networks there yet, it's been a bit hard to spread and scale their work. And that's pretty much kind of that in a nutshell. They do want people to get involved. They want people to come visit the sites of activities. They want guest speakers. They want facilitators. So if you know anybody in the area of Portland or willing to travel out there, please connect with Jeffrey Sens. His email address is at line 81. They're really looking to really kind of create a more robust local network. So we really encourage you, if you know anybody in the area who'd love to get involved, please head up. Yep, Randy, who was on, I met Randy in London this past work week. He's also a member of Hive Cascadia and has worked with Jeffrey and Christina Bayens, who's awesome. And he's included the Mythos Challenge in the chat. So I think that's pretty much what we can find about what we can discuss, because they're not here, and I would love to do them more justice. But I'm going to throw it over to Christina to kind of take us over the next leg.
There's actually oh, Simone, I'm going to mute you again. There seems to be an echo. Let's see. Okay. There is a really great question that came up in the chat that I think would be great for all of us to kind of hash out based on our different experiences. It comes from Pravash. It looks like the community there is trying to have a maker party soon in a small city, and the question is, how can we invite global participants to have a bigger impact for that event?
Tina or Glad, do you want to take a stab at the question?
For us, locally we are using tools like Eventbrite, the social media. I mean, it is a very broad set of tools that you could use in inviting global participants to have impact in your event or something like that.
To kind of cultivate more interest in local activities, from maybe how you've been able to garner kind of international interest in your local work.
Again, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Oh, sorry. This question was for Glad. Sorry.
Okay. Can you guys hear me? Okay. We came across this wall last year when we thought we're doing all of this work and we're sharing all these stories locally, but no one outside of the city is gaining access to us. And so we then introduced the podcast as a way to get those stories out everywhere else. We had, for example, an episode, it was like episode 7 or 8, with a woman named Zara Hyder, who had written an article for Vice News about her premarital sex experiences growing up in Pakistan, and it was super taboo in Pakistan. And she went from being, I think she went and became the most talked about news item in Pakistan in over a month. I think she went from having like 80 Twitter followers to 20,000 in the span of like a few days. So we had her on the podcast, and just to give you a sense of like global audience, I think over 95% of our listeners for that particular episode were outside of just Toronto. A lot from Pakistan, India, Saudi Arabia. So the podcast is one way to do that, and we're also exploring online festivals. So for those that can't attend, they'll be able to watch some of the films online or stream them online or gain access to our Q&As online. And lastly, with our photo project, After they're all done rotating around the city, we actually do put them online. So if anyone's interested in seeing what our gallery looked like last year, you can visit jayu.ca/im2015-2015. You can see all the images from last year. You can hear all the audio stories, and we'll be doing the same thing with this year's batch of youth.
Christina, I think you had something kind of to help us wrap up the call.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just making sure I was unmuted. Yeah, this has been a really great discussion. It looks like all of the questions that I'm seeing have been answered, or conversations happening in the Etherpad. And since we're down one speaker, it looks like we are going to be ending a little bit early today. But just wanted to let everyone know we are going to continue the tweet chat after this call. We'll probably wait a few more minutes, but might get started a little before the top of the hour, just since we are ending today. But if you do have availability to join us for the conversation, you can follow #TTWchat, and you can also follow @MozLearn, which will be where we are posting the questions. We'd love to have the conversation continued there, and just see more of how we can bring local events and campaigns and work into a broader global community, and have broader impact there. We also will not be having a community call or a curriculum workshop or a tweet chat next month. We are going to take a little bit of a hiatus for all of that, so we'll see you back in September. But for now, thank you so much, Gilad and Tina and Simona, for all of your work in presenting this, this great information. Feel free to check back in the Etherpad and answer any other questions that come up, but we really appreciate your time and your work in sharing with us. So thank you very much. All right, thank you. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.